Good evening and welcome to the Carnegie Town Hall. This meeting of the City Planning Commission will begin with a few introductory remarks. The City of Sioux Falls Planning Commission serves as an advisory board to the City Council. It is the responsibility of the Planning Commission to consider and make recommendations on land use and zoning matters. Actions taken tonight on conditional use permits are final unless appealed to the City Council in writing within 5 days, and any actions taken tonight on initial development plans, alternative plans, or minor amendments are final. Any recommendations made on preliminary subdivision plan requests tonight will be referred to the City Council for final action at the third council meeting of this month, or at the first council meeting of the next month if associated with a rezoning or major amendment. Any recommendations made on rezoning requests, major amendments, future land use amendments, or ordinance amendments tonight will be referred to the City Council for final action at the first council meeting of next month. Council meetings are held the first 3 Tuesdays at 7 p.m. here in the Carnegie Town Hall and are televised. The Planning Commission will first approve the consent agenda and then the regular agenda. In order to place certain non-controversial items on the Commission's consent agenda, Planning staff and the Planning Commission apply the following criteria. First, the request conforms with the Shape Sioux Falls 2040 Comprehensive Plan. Second, Planning staff recommends approval of the request. Third, there are no audience members present or written comments received in opposition to the request. And fourth, the application meets all conditions and requirements of the Sioux Falls zoning ordinance. By approving the consent agenda, the Commission is approving the items on consent. Therefore, upon approval of the agenda, those members of the public in attendance for those items are free to leave. For the regular agenda, the following normal public hearing procedure will be followed for each item. By first requesting planning staff to present a brief report on that item. Second, the petitioner or a representative will be requested to come forward to make a statement or answer questions. After the petitioner has spoken, anyone from the audience who wishes to address the agenda item shall be recognized. Then the Planning Commission will discuss the matter further and take appropriate action. We ask that anyone addressing the Planning Commission move to the podium microphone to identify themselves for the record. Please limit your comments to less than 5 minutes and focus on new testimony not already presented. As a courtesy to everyone here tonight, we ask that you please either turn off or silence your electronic devices. This meeting is being televised on CityLink and will be rebroadcast Saturday at 10 a.m., Friday at 7 p.m., and Wednesday at 1 a.m. Thank you for your cooperation. Call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. Thank you all for coming to our meeting tonight. Out of courtesy for everyone, I'd remind everybody to please silence your electronic devices. We're looking forward to hearing everybody's input tonight. In order to allow adequate time for everyone, please limit your comments to a single 5-minute period per person. And please focus on new testimony not already heard. Public testimony related to each item will be heard after that item has been announced and described in the recorded information in the introduction. We will have a session for public input on non-agenda items near the end of the agenda after all of the items for discussion have been gone through and acted upon. So if you're interested in presenting something that's not specifically related to one of the items on the agenda, please wait for that period and you'll have another single 5-minute period per person for a maximum of 20 minutes total for that public input session. Let's see. Denise.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Item 1, approval of July 5th, 2018 minutes of regular meeting. Item 2, July plats. Item 3, 8791 2018, rezone from the RT1 Single Family Residential Traditional District to the RD1 Twin Home Duplex Residential District for allowed forms at 509 North Colville Avenue. Item 4, 8804 2018, rezone from the RD1 Twin Home Duplex Residential Suburban District to the LW Live Work District for allowed forms at 2801 North Career Avenue. Item 5, 8879 2018, rezone from the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar District to the I-1 Light Industrial District for allowed forms at 5100 North Healy Lane. Item 6, 8892-2018, rezone from the C4 Commercial Regional District to the CN Conservation District for allowed forms located east of Interstate 29 North and north of West 12th Street. Item 7, 8904-2018, rezone from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the CN Conservation District for allowed forms at 5501 East Red Oak Drive. Item 8, 8905-2018, rezone from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the CN Conservation District for allowed forms at 2513 South Eisenhower Avenue. Item 9, 8906-2018, rezone from the RA2 Apartment Residential Moderate Density District to the CN Conservation District for allowed forms at 5311 West 26th Street. Item 10, 8831-2018, preliminary subdivision plan for the Donahoe Farms addition located at the southwest corner of East 69th Street and Southeastern Avenue.
Thank you, Denise. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make comment about any of those items 1 through 10? If so, we can put that on the regular agenda. Otherwise, we typically vote for the consent agenda without comment. Are there anyone in the audience who would like to see one of those items further discussed? Seeing none, entertain a motion from the commission.
Mr. Chair, move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Denise.
Mr.
Chair. I'd entertain a motion for approval of the regular agenda items.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the regular agenda. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the regular agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Item 11, 8534-2018, rezone from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the S1 General Institutional District for allowed forms located south of West 26th Street and west of South Elmwood Avenue.
Jason Bieber representing Planning and Development Services. The applicant is proposing to vacate South Elmwood Avenue from 26th Street to 28th Street and then construct a parking lot with roughly 150 parking spaces for the existing Lifescape building to the east. Lifescape currently leases roughly 88 parking spaces from the VA to the north. Their lease is up on those spaces and it's not going to be renewed, so they are looking at constructing their own off-site parking lot for employees and visitors. They are required 20-foot front yard setbacks off of 26th and 28th Street. They are looking at adding an additional 62 parking spaces from what they currently lease, and that will hopefully eliminate some of the congestion that occurs on 28th Street. Then the cars for staff and visitors can park in this parking lot. They are required a level D buffer yard to the existing single-family homes to the west. This does include a 45-foot setback, 6-foot high berm, and 50 units of landscaping for 100 lineal feet. The proposed zoning does meet the Sioux Falls Comprehensive Plan. The existing Lifescape building has been in the neighborhood for some time. The facility currently leases those 88 spaces, as I had indicated before, from the VA hospital. With their lease up, they need to provide or make up those existing 88 spaces. They will, and then that will hopefully, as I indicated before, eliminate some of that congestion on 26th and 28th Street. The proposed 150-foot parking space, or 150 parking space that you can see here in the picture, should accommodate these existing cars that park on the street, as well as any of the staff and additional visitor parking. Staff does feel that the proposed rezoning should have the following condition on it to make it more compatible with the existing single-family homes to the west. That condition would be principal and accessory uses within NF1, NF2, UT1, UT2, BCF 1, 2, and 3, and RE1 forms be limited to accessory off-site parking only. This condition will hopefully alleviate some of the neighbors' concerns with the construction of a large institutional building that could be built on this property without the condition. And finally, that required buffer yard to the west should help screen the proposed parking lot from those existing single-family homes to the west. Because the subject application is consistent with the Shape Sioux Falls Comprehensive Plan, the required buffer yard should provide that necessary screening of the proposed parking lot to the adjacent existing single-family residential homes. And the suggested condition should alleviate neighborhood concerns about large institutional buildings being built on the properties. Staff does recommend approval of this rezoning with the following condition. Principal and accessory uses within the NF1, NF2, UT1, UT2, BCF1, BCF2, BCF3, and RE1 forms be limited to that accessory off-site parking. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair? Jason, you talked about vacating the street. What's the process for them to go about doing that?
The vacation of Elmwood Avenue goes through the Public Works Department, specifically engineering. They do not have to come in front of the Planning Commission for that process. They will be going to City Council, I believe, on the 14th of August for first reading. And then second reading will correspond with this rezoning, second reading in front of the council on September 4th. So they'll kind of go together.
Okay, so the only thing we're looking at then is rezoning the parcel with the condition listed, right?
Yep, we are looking at just those parcels, and you've seen it before, obviously, just with that added condition on it. So,
thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the commission? Hearing none. Thank you, Jason. Is the petitioner here or representative? Come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Rick DeSanto. I'm with Lifescape.
Anything you'd like to add to Jason's commentary?
No, I think Jason's covered it pretty well. We've been working with the neighbors for several months, and there was some neighborhood meetings and got some feedback that they were concerned that what we might do in the future with that property. So suggested that we put a condition on it, which we are agreeable to at this time. So,
okay, any other comments?
I don't think so. I was here in June, and we've just gone back because of the condition that they've asked to have put on it. So, yeah. I think Jason explains it pretty well. We're needing parking, and we've got until end of or May of 2019 to find some parking, and so that's why we've been purchasing those homes for many years, and are moving forward with trying to put a parking lot there for our staff. We feel it will really help the neighborhood. We park on the streets. It creates issues for snow removal as well as just congestion in the neighborhood. A couple of the other things that has been suggested is that we have no parking on 28th Street, and we will be agreeable to that as well once we have our parking lot, and then only parking on the south side of 26th Street. Right now there's parking both on the south end and north side of 26th Street, and that becomes congested. Somewhat of an unsafe situation because you got people crossing the street. There is a crosswalk there, but not everybody uses it. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Is there anyone from the audience who would like to address this item? Okay, seeing none.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the item with the condition that the principal and accessory uses within the NF1, NF2, UT1, UT2, BCF1, 2, and 3, and REI1 forms be limited to accessory off-site parking.
I'll second that. Wow.
That was impressive.
Thank you.
Any discussion now that we have a motion and a second?
Mr. Chair, I think it makes sense. It's a good condition to put on this to alleviate some of those neighbors' concerns, so I'm all in favor of it.
I just want to say thank you to the petitioner for listening to the neighborhood. So, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Item 12, 8738-2018, rezoned from the S1 General Institutional District to the RA2 Apartment Residential Moderate Density District for allowed forms located at 6300 West 41st Street.
The applicant is proposing to rezone roughly 5.32 acres from the S1 General Institutional District to the RA2 Apartment Residential Moderate Density District. The applicant plans to construct 2 3-story, 48-unit senior living apartments on this existing vacant piece of property. West 41st Street is classified as a limited access arterial street. As you can see from the aerial, there is an existing access for the church onto Keene Park Road. The church and the applicant are looking to move that access to the north, right where this existing garage is, and then that can function as a dual access for both uses of the church and the proposed senior apartment facility. The proposed apartment facility will require 25-foot front and 10-foot side yard setbacks. The MD2 form does allow 3 stories with a maximum height of 45 feet, and then buildings can only have a maximum of 48 dwelling units per building, which the applicant is proposing to do 2 buildings with 48 units in each one. Parking for senior and elderly apartments is 0.75 spaces for each dwelling unit. The concept plan does indicate some surface parking, as well as you can see some underground parking for the residents. A level B buffer yard is required along that north property line. This buffer yard requires a 15-foot setback, 2-foot berm or 4-foot fence, and 30 units of landscaping per every 100 lineal feet. The concept plan, as you can see on the east side, does indicate a significant detention pond. The pond should alleviate some of the stormwater issues and concerns of the existing church site. The proposed zoning does meet the shape Sioux Falls Comprehensive Plan. The existing S1 General Institutional District would allow an assisted living facility of 3 stories, 45 feet high, and an unlimited number of dwelling units within that facility. Along with that, other uses that are allowed on this current zoning would be a school, hospital, and they could also do multiple dwellings above the first floor. They could construct an apartment complex with a limited number of units as long as the first floor was parking or some sort of an office use. The proposed RA2 apartment residential district caps that number of units per building at 48. Further, the concept plan does indicate a buffer yard that exceeds the requirement. This plan, they are showing a 30-foot setback, which is 15 is required, and a significant number of trees along that north property line to try and screen these apartments from the existing single-family residential uses. This buffer yard should hopefully help those incompatibility issues. Finally, the applicant is addressing traffic concerns by moving the access that's currently really close to the light on 41st and Keene Park Road to the north. And use it as a dual access for the church and these proposed senior living apartments. Relocating this existing access away from the stoplight should help reduce some of the conflict with the cars that are queued up trying to take a left turn onto West 41st Street. Because the subject application is consistent with the Shape Sioux Falls Comprehensive Plan, traffic and drainage concerns have been reviewed and will need to be addressed with engineering submittals and construction documents for the proposed development. And the increased buffer yard should alleviate some incompatibilities with the existing single-family houses to the north and the east. Staff does recommend approval of this rezoning, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the commission?
Jason, with the current zoning, how high can they build a building?
The current zoning allows unlimited height unless you're adjacent to single family or twin home forms, which they are to the north and the east. So they would be limited to the same as the MD2 form, which would be 3 stories and 45 feet. However, there isn't a cap on the number of dwelling units per building, so they could construct in a limited number of dwelling units as long as they can meet setbacks, parking, drainage, all those different issues, so.
Thank you.
Other
Mr. Chair?
questions?
Jason, in the detention pond and the drainage of the area, that's all handled in city code? That's, they'll have to work with the city engineers to make sure that they follow all those rules, correct?
Yep, they've been working, actually been working with drainage engineering quite a bit to design the pond, over-engineer the pond, I think is the word they've been using. So, and that at the time of the submittal, if this rezoning is approved by city council and they go forward with the construction of this, those would all be looked at as part of the building permit process.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Jason. Is the petitioner here? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Mark Mickelson, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, here on behalf of the petitioner. Gail Swenis is here, and he and I are intending to partner to develop this. We have an agreement with the church that owns that property, the Assembly of God Church, and they're here in the room. Their preachers and their lay leadership are here, and they've hired the engineer, DGR, so they're in the room to answer questions too. Gail really led in the church, Dan from the church. We've had 2 neighborhood meetings at the church, which is just out the back door, to kind of address the concerns, and have visited about different kinds of concept plans, met with the planning office several times about the moderate density versus a higher density, a single building. And this is, we're comfortable proceeding on this. I think you're going to hear from a representative of the neighbors, or at least some of the neighbors, that express 3 primary concerns. The first is drainage, and as you guys indicated, there are some drainage issues there. That pond predates current engineering standards of the city, so I've had some experience with some other developments, and I think with good engineering, we're going to improve that situation out there pretty significantly. The access issue will also come up during approval of construction and building permits, so it may not be ripe quite yet, but to address those concerns, we've reached an agreement with the church to move their existing driveway so that we just keep the same number of entrances and just have a shared driveway there. And then in terms of the kind of development that we intend to do, these will be, I use the term luxury senior living, but they'll be maybe a lease to own, or a very nice rental market type of unit with underground parking and a lot of amenities. So we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, or have our technical experts answer them as well.
Any questions from the commission?
Oh, it's on. Can you hear me now? All right. Thanks. Could you take us through the 3 concepts you've provided for development of that property?
Yeah, we originally had proposed, I think, a 30-foot buffer yard, and then after meeting with the neighbors, we had some feedback that said, well, maybe we could try to push that to 40 feet, and the site got a little bit tight for us doing that. We have to get underneath the building for the underground parking, and so we just had a few engineering concerns with the 40-foot setback. And we had discussed with the neighbors turning the buildings around and kind of having them face north. And once we addressed the traffic concerns, John, we needed to put the driveway where it shows, which is on the south of the buildings, and that really means that we need to have the buildings face south to accommodate the access concerns and where the shared driveway is going to be. So we had at our last public meeting, we presented all 3 of those, said, hey, we're pretty amenable. And then since then, we've met with the church, met with some of the city planning folks, and really decided that the access issue needs to be addressed by this driveway. And so that's what's driven us to this. And then I know Gail has had some meetings individually with some of the neighbors as recently as last night, kind of just to explaining to them why this is the direction that we're heading.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, thanks, Mark. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to address this item? Come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Arlie Brindy. I work at Brindy and Metter Law Office at 110 North Phillips here in Sioux Falls. I represent about 30 families, neighboring families to the north and some to the east of the proposed development. The zoning issue, at first we said we're against the rezoning, but it just makes sense if this is something that works, that the zoning should change. But we have the three issues: the drainage issue, the placement issue, and the traffic issue. And we're asking you to, when you make a recommendation to the city, that you balance the rights of the development and the neighbors who have been there since the early 80s. The drainage issue. We're covering a lot of ground now with this proposal that wasn't covered before, and the water problems are serious for the neighbors to the north and some to the east, down in the corner where the water drains out. I think there's a 24-foot change from the southwest to the northeast. There's higher ground even to the west of that. Some pumps in many of these homes run all the time, water in the basements. There's probably not enough culvert to drain to get the water pumped out onto the northbound Valley View. And that's another issue, that no matter what you would do with this property, the water has no place to go. We had a city map. Can I turn that on? The proposed, the property is right here. The water drains between those two lots onto our street and then onto Valley View. Water backs up now and it stands in the street and it goes into basements of some of the houses. And I don't think anyone knows for sure who owns that storm sewer that goes from the property we're talking about now onto Valley View. So it's another issue with the drainage, which was important to us. As far as placement is concerned, the staff talks about complying with the go-forward documents that are on file with the city of Sioux Falls. But Shape Sioux Falls says, and it's quoted right in the report, compatible heights and scale methods to minimize negative effects. So what we're talking about here is what you saw earlier as opposed to what was proposed to the neighbors a few weeks ago. The buildings backing up to the church with the second drive, which they now propose to extinguish, coming in on the north. At least the neighbors don't have, as you look at that, a photo that was taken at the penitentiary today. This is 60 feet away from the backyard of a house and the proposed property to the back of the two proposed buildings. That's 60 feet. That's how far you'd be in the back step of the houses owned by my clients to the back of the building. That's a 30-foot fence at the penitentiary, concrete. I took that picture with people to put it in perspective and another 50% above it to show how tall the building is that's only 60 feet away from the houses. And I really believe that that's not being incompatible in size to these residences. Down on 85th Street, this all was a big issue last year. Those three-story apartments were not blocking the south sun. They were not blocking the backyards. For example, I have for you a sketch here.
Sir, you're over your 5 minutes. I'll give you another minute just to summarize, if you could.
Yes. This is a 45-foot building and a regular house with the setbacks in between them. December and probably 2 months on each side. The house, none of the yard and half the house won't get any sunlight. I don't think that's compatible. I don't think that's reasonable. I think that's stealing air and sky from my clients. We have some other issues that are also the same. The roadway on the east side, on the west side. We never complained about the two entrances. We complained about the amount of traffic. And I think it'll be warranted to order a traffic flow study, which the city can do if they want to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to come forward to speak to this item?
I have a question, I guess. First, can I yield time?
What's that?
Can I yield time to someone else?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, I'm Liz Theiner. I reside at 6212 West Oscar House Circle, across the street from the proposed. And I guess first off, we kind of feel like we're in a shell game here, because what has been proposed to the neighborhood, the church, etc., is a constantly changing. And so this proposal that you see here is different than the one just a few weeks ago. I feel that that is inappropriate. The amount of entrance points now has been taken from 2 to 1, meaning all the church traffic will now go to that single entrance, which causes a traffic concern on the Keene Park Road there. And also, as far as the safety with that, there is concern tremendously with the amount of traffic with the school parking on the west side of that street, and with access points to our city parks, our city pools, our city tennis courts, all being impeded by the amount of traffic that will be going through a single point now that in this proposal. Additionally, the current zoning is for assisted living. The traffic with an assisted living facility is tremendously different than the traffic for luxury apartments, etc. And I think that needs to be considered in this proposal. I think Mr. Brendy has expressed a lot of our concerns with regards to the amount of water. And again, there is a change from what was proposed before. Before it was proposed as a retention pond, it is now a detention pond, which we understand that the zoning regulations, the cleaning, etc., all change. And I think that needs to be brought up and considered. Additionally, the safety for a detention pond versus a retention pond is different. And I feel that with the amount of children in that neighborhood, you have a large daycare at the church, you have a daycare across the street, across Valley View, you have numerous young children in that neighborhood, and you have a school, an elementary school, which numerous children take a pathway near there to get to school. And I think that needs to be consideration of this board as well as going forward. The 30-foot proposal of the setback, I know they said they had considered the 40-foot proposal. However, their engineering said that that was possible. Now, when it gets presented here, it's changed back to a 30-foot. Also, there was discussion of a higher berm, greater shrubbery, etc., for shielding, and that has now gone from a higher level down to a lower level again in this proposal that's presented here. So like I said, I am concerned about the shell game that I'm seeing played here between what is presented to you guys, what is presented to the church, what is presented to the neighborhood. There's tremendous differences still occurring. Okay? And since I can't yield time, I guess that ends my presentation.
Okay, just a moment.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the commission? Hearing none.
I guess I do have one question. Have you guys seen the other proposals? Or is this the only one that's presented to you guys?
I think John was speaking to the other two proposals
Okay.
just a moment ago.
Concepts A, B, and C presented.
Because I will say, as a taxpayer, I am very for changing any land that is non-taxable to taxable. However, not at the expense of the existing property owners or the existing neighborhood. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak to this item? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Matt Howard. I live on Oscar House Circle right behind the second proposed building. And just my concern was to echo that the 40-foot and then the 30-foot has been changed back. But down on the drainage, if rained a couple days ago, and as you turn off Valley View onto Oscar House Circle, there's still standing water there right now as we came to this meeting. So that, you know, it's going to put more water into that area, and it's already an issue where it's draining or not draining. And also the proposal before us for Lifescape, they said they were going to put in a 6-foot berm and different setback, and here it's only a 2-foot, and I'm wondering why the difference, why they were required a 6-foot berm and this one's only required a 2-foot on that, if anyone has an answer to that.
I think Jason will address that perhaps after the rest of your commentary.
All right, that's all.
We
That
don't
was the
want to
only question I
interrupt.
had, is why it's a lower standard for us.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Jason, can you address that for us?
Yeah, buffer yard requirements within the zoning ordinance are based on forms that are constructed. This forum for multifamily is considered more compatible with adjacent single family than a large institutional form that Lifescape was. That's why Lifescape is required a level D buffer yard, and then this one is required a level B buffer yard.
So it is a different style of buffer yard, essentially.
Yep, correct.
Okay, very good. Any questions from the commission? Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anyone else? Oh,
I
Jeff.
just wanted to clarify with Jason. I think I should publicly state that so that people don't. So anyways, Jeff Schmidt representing city planning staff. Lifescape is zoned S1. And so what Jason just explained was there was a buffer yard requirement there that required more because it was S1. That's what's currently here. If it goes to the RA1, you would have less impacts, and so it would have less of a buffer yard.
So just to clarify, if this stays S1,
S1.
the buffer yard has to remain larger,
Correct.
as we saw in the previous.
Correct. The zoning, again, the zoning and the forms that are there have different buffer yards. And again, the other thing I'd like to clarify, it keeps coming up, this is really important for the citizens, especially the citizens that are home, but the Planning Commission looks at yes or no decisions on land uses. This is it S1 or RA2? It's a good opportunity to talk about what the proposal is going to be, where the parking is going to be, but you don't approve that tonight. That doesn't fall within your preview. I talked to some citizens out tonight beforehand. It's very similar to when a property gets zoned single family, RS, and then if they came into us and said, well, what type of house is going to get built there? We don't make a determination on what type of house, how many stall garages or how many bedrooms or, you know, what the kitchen is. It's zoned for a single family house. That's what gets to be built there. If this gets zoned S1, they get to do something there and meet the requirements of S1. If it gets zoned RA, they do apartments. We will not look at Planning Commission, would not look at where it's laid out or how it lays out. They would have to meet mechanical code, electrical code, building codes, plumbing code, drainage, traffic. They have to meet the codes, but you would not make a decision on how it gets laid out.
Okay, thank you. Any
Mr. Chair,
questions? Yes.
And that would include access points then too. We don't make the decision on where those are.
Correct. This body would not make a decision, again, on either one of them. If it's S1 or RA2, this body would not make a determination on where the access point is, but traffic engineering would make those decisions. Again, to try to make sure that traffic flow is correct and that drainage is correct. Those types of things. Those are engineering standards.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I also think it's important, Jeff, if you could re-clarify.
I think you check your mic.
No, I think
Okay.
it's on. I think if you could just re-clarify the maximum building height for S1 as well as RA.
Sure. They're both 45 feet in height. That is it's a high building, but for S1 or RA, they're both 45 feet in height. And again, reason I got up here is because S1 does have a larger setback buffer yard, but RA2 has a different setback.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience additional that would like to address this item? Come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
Mark Gunderson, 6205 West Oscar Howe Circle. I got a couple things I'd like to pull up if that's possible. One of our neighborhood's biggest concerns, is the height of the building. And so this is just an overshot from Google Maps. If you take a look at the corner of 41st and Hallbrook, there is a 3-story apartment complex that is there, but it is also surrounded with setbacks, has a street, and then setbacks, and then a house. So it's just a little bit of a different animal or beast than what we're talking about here. And then on 26th and Marion, Bentwood Manor is also this exact same thing where it has a street buffering it from the neighborhood. So it actually gives quite a bit more of a setback, quite a bit more light to see. And then my last one is, up on 18th and Marion, Foxmore and Steeplechase. Also the same issue with having no residential housing right next to the proposed 3 stories. I got one more that is just a little further up 41st Street, and that's just past Ace Hardware and all that, down a little bit more to the west. And that's Boulder Creek Townhomes. Those are about 1.5 stories to 2 stories. And then if you look to the north behind them, there's a buffer zone of townhomes that was built there before the residential. So things that I would like you guys to consider, that we don't have any kind of those setbacks, and things that are nice to us. I just moved in the neighborhood in November. So things that are nice to us of having light, and especially in the wintertime, to melt the snow in the backyard, aren't going to happen if we build a 3-story complex back there. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Okay. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to address this item? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
Bridget Myers, and I am at 6209 West Oscar Howe. That's actually my next door neighbor. I'm coming to speak on advice from my personal counsel, personal legal counsel. We currently don't have a water problem. We're one of maybe 3 houses in the whole neighborhood that doesn't have a water problem because of how my house is built. We don't go fully in the basement like a ranch home. Our ground level is a walkout, so it's not fully in the basement. So I think that's part of the reason we don't get the water problems a lot of our neighbors get. However, 3 years ago, when we had the 8 inches of rain, we did have water. And our sump pump did not go off because it hadn't ran in the 12 years I'd lived there. Since a new parking lot had been put on the church and some of the other construction that's been done at the church, it has created some water problems. And we didn't know that until after the parking lot had been built, and that's when we started to see more water problems in the area. Some of our neighbors, their basement windows blew out because the water from the, I don't know what you guys call it, a detention pond or retention pond we have there now, overflowed into their backyards and blew out their windows. Some of these people have replaced their basements several times at $15,000 a pop, all because of the development that's happened up on that church property has pushed more and more water. And where my house is, if I stand there, the people 4 houses up from me can't see me standing there because that's how much it slopes from the recession, from the water, from the history of the land. I've only lived there for 12 years, so I wasn't there through all the construction process that's created most of the water problem, but I do know people have complained to the city and they've complained to the church, and it has not been corrected. We have concerns because things aren't being addressed now, and now we're going to add another project onto this particular piece of land. Lake Lorraine, we went by there. Their detention pond has water in it all the time. You go by there today, it's full of water. I walked over by there and took pictures so I could see for myself, and there's water in there. I don't understand why they can say that it's not going to have water. Ours currently has water in it right now. My friend lives on 95th and Hughes. They have a problem with waterworks. Some commercial properties went up, and now they've got a drainage problem, and they all have water. And they're being told that it is at their expense now to put in the drain tiling. I'm concerned in the video from the city planning, it says that this housing, when you go and watch it from July 21, the video says that this is affordable housing for the Roosevelt community. This is not what I would consider affordable housing for the Roosevelt community. If you look, it's $150,000 just to buy into this place, and then they're going to have housing association fees or whatever they call their independent senior living. So I have some concerns about that being affordable housing, since that's what the city needs right now is affordable housing, not luxury type living. I'm concerned about my property value. When I go to put my home up for sale, I now have a building in my backyard. If you look up my property now, it says beautiful eastern view where I can see the sun on my deck. I'm not going to be able to put that when I go to sell my house because I'm not going to have a beautiful eastern view anymore. I am also concerned about the safety on the park road. I have 4 children. We use the park regularly. I love living there because I'm close to the park. We can walk, bike, anything we want to do. And the traffic is heavy there. Since they sold all those spots to Roosevelt for parking, the traffic is scary there. I'm cautious my children very, very much to watch because it's posted 15 for the speed limit. People do not do 15. And I know that's not, it's something that we need to address, but that park, people speed down that road. It's scary. And my kids cross there to play baseball. They're in club baseball right at that ball fields there. And we're over there a lot. We utilize all of that. So I have some concerns about putting more traffic on that road that you already have. The church also sold 75, I believe it's 75 spots on their side of the church where they're also selling parking to Roosevelt. So you've got both of those places being used now for school parking during the day. My last thing that I wanted to talk about too is I am not in favor of the rezone. For me, I would rather see assisted living or some of those other options that are under that zone. I do like that it is a bigger buffer, and I do think it would be less traffic stamp on the area, so I would like for you to keep the zone what it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commission? Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this item? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
James Hubers, 6109 West Oscar House Circle. On that map, we're the 3rd house in from Valley View Road, be right at the end of that proposed 2nd building. Not to belittle all the other points that have been brought up, we're against the rezoning because we do feel that even if it is we don't believe that assisted living would build there simply because they couldn't afford to buy the land and do all the significant groundwork that's needed. Also, we don't believe if assisted living is built there, it would be 45 feet. It would probably be more likely a 2-story building. That is one of our biggest concerns, is the 45-foot height. And as mentioned, also the changing options. This would basically destroy the character of this neighborhood if you rezone this, not only because of the traffic, but because of the size of these buildings. This is an established, well-established neighborhood for 35 years. Now you're going to change rezoning, allowing something in there that doesn't belong there. This would be like a scar or a cancer in this neighborhood. We already talked about our home valuations would go down. As for water and drainage, we already know where the problems are and what causing them. Due to this development, we don't know what the new ones will be, the unknown and unforeseen. And like was mentioned, once it's built, it's our problem. If we complain to the city, it says, the city will say, talk to the developer. The developer will say, we followed all the codes and regulations. So then it's our money that we have to retile or add some pumps, add back up some pumps, add whatever. It'll be at our dollar expense. And if more basements are lost because of this development, again, it's our money. And there's no compensation, no consideration. I know you all are appointed, you all volunteer for this board, so I guess I appeal to your sense of decency and fairness that the current zoning is proper, even though it's a possibility a 45-foot building could be built there, but there still would be setbacks, there still would have to be address all the drainage issues, and we're okay with that. We would rather obviously have a 2-story building that would be more compatible to the neighborhood because it's all single-family homes. It's a new modern church, which is like a single story and a half, maybe maximum 2-story height. There's nothing that approaches this height other than the water tower. You know, we used to say, well, we live by the water tower because you can see it far away. Now we can say, well, we live by that apartment buildings. I mean, there's got to be, I know it's bureaucracy and it's rules and regulations and forms and S1 and R2 and all this other stuff, but the way it is zoned, it was zoned for a reason. Obviously, it was zoned before shaped places came into place, but it was rezoned for a reason because there's a neighborhood and there's, you know, even the business on the corners are, you know, single-story businesses. So rezoning it makes no sense because of the traffic on, like I said, we mentioned on Keene Park Road, it's an overflow road for Roosevelt parking lot, so very dangerous. This would create more. An assisted living would not create as much as an issue, but it would still create an issue. Home valuations in the sun in the winter, I mean, my wife had brought that up before and now the sketch brings it up. I mean, unfortunately, none of us have solar panels on our roofs. If we did, well, then we could be like the monster house in McKinnon Park saying, well, you're depriving us of our solar energy. But unfortunately, we don't. I don't think we have time to get that done before this is approved, though. So those are the things. It's just not a fair for us. I mean, we are citizens. We bought into this city. We live there. We barely have enough money sometimes to scrape by to do any of this improvements to our yards, and that you're going to just allow a developer to come in and do something that'll have negatively affect on us. We're all for progress, but this is not progress. This is regress. This is not adding to the neighborhood. This is taking away from the neighborhood. So the current zoning is proper, even though it's been pointed out they could build a large building of supposedly unlimited numbers, but it still would more likely be lower in height and maybe more spread out. And it would just be a much better option. So, I don't know. I think I covered it all. But
okay,
thank you.
Are there any questions from the commission?
Oh, I would also say that, right, there was 3 options. And I don't know if we take this as a threat or not, but one time they did mention that we do not accept option C, which is now not even an option, and then they would go to option A, which is now the option. And, you know, we didn't, whether amendment was a threat or not, well, we didn't appreciate how it was presented to us, as others had mentioned, how this has gone back and forth, so.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the input. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak to this item? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Name is Orland Artun. I live at 3008 South Valley View Road. And my question is, if we have problems now, it seems as though we are only intensifying the problem. When I would guess that it's probably been 5 years after I moved into my home, they asked for or demanded that I pay for a drainage down through Kingswood to be cemented in rather than just dirt buffered. Because there was all kinds of animals and whatnot living down there and whatnot. And I would imagine this larger stock dam, I would call it, is going to be a danger to the children. It's going to be not very good looking for the neighborhood. And I wondered if we need bigger pipes or bigger drainage. Is there not more people? I can't quite remember, pardon me, I thought it was $500 I had to pay for that drainage down through Kingswood because I built my home in Fairway. And I had to help pay for that cement drainage rather than mud, dirt, cattails and everything else, and down through there. I gladly went down and paid for that, and now I'm confronted with the same thing. My house never did have water in it until this situation come up where we got a huge rooftop church. We got a large parking lot for the church. We got other parking spaces for the amusements up there, the pool and all that kind of stuff that came into effect. I suspect that's the reason I have to pump water when we have these big torrential rains. And it's because at that time, the city said that my roof no longer soaked up water. And along with everybody else in my neighborhood, it soaked no more water either. So they had to go down there and pay the city to pay for that cement going down through Kingswood. I'm asking, where is the money coming from the new improved storm sewer? You're putting in how many units, how big a roof, how big a parking space you're putting in, and nobody's paying no money for that. Nobody's paying money for the additional drainage that's coming because of the rooftops do not soak in water, and the rooftops, parking lots, it's going to be a lot. Who is going to pump that water away? I had to pay to get it away from my house down through Kingswood. Now, somebody up on the hill from me, I would assume that they should have to pay also for their water that's coming down my place. My property value is just going down the toilet if you proceed with these apartments. I didn't realize it was even going to be 3-story buildings. A lot of people moving. Not like it would have been single development or whatever. You know, I can't understand where the complication is in getting rid of the water.
Okay, thank you.
It's drained.
I appreciate that.
It goes through pipes.
Are there any questions from the commission? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hartoon. Anyone else in the audience would like to address this item? Hearing none, I think we've had quite, oh, is there another one? Oh, come forward. Sorry, I didn't see your hand. Come forward, state your name and address for the record if you would.
I need to stand right here.
Yep, right at the microphone.
Okay. My name is Ray Eng. I'm a neighbor to Hartoon, live across the street from him. He's been a lifesaver for me and my property problems. When I moved there, Valley View went uphill to 41st Street. 41st Street was just a two-lane narrow country road. And before they had been there very long, they decided to lower 41st Street, and all that dirt had to go someplace, and then widen 41st Street, and all that dirt had to go someplace. And they put all of that into the church yard. And so the first rain we had, all that moisture had to go someplace, and it washed all that dirt down onto my property. And I've been dealing with that ever since, because we still have those big wide roads and all the water that comes out of that. I just installed my third set of sump pumps now in my house, and I have to do that to keep my basement dry. And now with some of the things that are being proposed, more water is coming down. They're talking about even a larger retaining pond. When I was there, we didn't have to have a retaining pond because all the water got soaked in. But now that new water new soil that came off of those roads, that doesn't absorb any moisture, so it all has to run down. And my yard has been a good collecting point for that. And now they did put a retaining pond, and now they want an even bigger one. And fortunately, our kids are all grown and away, so we don't need a swimming pool in our yard. But I am disappointed that every decision that's made with what's going to happen in the church parking lot has just made it harder for me to live there.
Okay, appreciate the comment. Any questions from the commission? Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address this item? Okay, seeing none, I think it'd be appropriate, since we heard so many comments about drainage and other engineering-oriented things, if the applicant and their engineer could come forward and maybe address a few of those items. State your name and address for the record, please.
Aaron Norman, DGR Engineering, 2909 East 57th Street. Good evening, Aaron Norman here. I was working or hired by the church to help them with the developer here to lay out the site and take a look at some of the site geometrics and utilities and drainage and traffic. As you heard tonight, there's been a lot of testimony about some water drainage issues along back property lines and coming off the church, heading towards that direction. We've gone out and done some field surveying, so we've got some elevations in the field, so we're able to kind of get a good analysis and feel for what the topography is doing. And as previously discussed tonight, it does slope, 20 feet more or less from the west and south to the northeast. As part of our design and calculations, we've been working with city staff and engineering to see how we need to hold back our water if we were to do this development and what we need to do in design. So we are going to be over-engineering the site and the pond, essentially analyze the site as if it's a grass field today. And with all the new impervious, we got to hold back all that extra water that's going to get there quicker with the new improvements. So the shape, size, depth of it will get ironed out in final design. We're obviously in conceptual phase right now. We have calculations, kind of figure out what volume we need, but it could look like that, a little bigger, a little smaller. It will change, but it'll be reviewed by city staff and meet their requirements. We'll have two requirements to meet with city staff. One will be water detention and then water quality as well. So we have control sediment runoff as well through the site. our hopes is the less water, we'll be holding back less water, or more water, so the release will be less than what's today. We went out and walked the site yesterday, and it's kind of apparent on the north side there that there's some intermittent drainage swales in the property lines that not a lot of the water goes to the current pond today. So I think with these proposed improvements, we can funnel the water to where it needs to go and control that release, like with storm sewer, roof drain collection, curb and gutter. So we can get a better handle on that drainage.
We did hear some questions about how this gets drained then. Could you address that as well?
As the site?
Right, once there's water in here, how does it get drained?
So essentially like it's a bathtub, any shape, size of bathtub, and it's got an outlet in it. So we're controlling that outlet at how you let the water out of the bathtub. And our control and our calculations is not to increase that water than what's out there today, to try to over-retain, to hold it back even more than what's there today.
Okay.
So.
Are there any questions from the commission?
Commissioner, what do you base it on, your retention pond? Is it a 5-year rain, 10-year rain, 100-year rain?
That's a great question. Yeah, we do analyze 5-year rains, but we also analyze the 100-year event. So we got to hold back the 100-year event. So the whole site's 16 acres, and we got about 13, 14 acres of a watershed area drained into it. So not the whole site goes to it. Some of it goes 41st Street, essentially from the front of the church building kind of to the north, all drains that way. Water from Keene Park Road, that's curb and gutter street, that all gets funneled to a different drainage basin. So.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think I might have heard something important there, that when you're talking about the drainage, you're not talking about just the 5 acres for these 2 buildings, you're talking about the entire church site.
Correct. So we're not just addressing the 5 acres that we're going to develop, we're also taking into account the existing church property as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions?
I had a question, Mr. Chair. Could you explain the difference between a retention and a detention pond? And I think I heard you say that there won't be more water, but I didn't hear you say there would be less.
So the first part, the retention pond and detention pond. Retention pond is like a wet standing water. Detention pond, you detain it and release it at a slower rate. And the city's got engineering design standards to release major storm events over a certain period of time. So you're not increasing the water downstream property owners. So our goal is, there's a pipe and detention pond in there today. It probably doesn't meet any engineering design standards. And our goal is to reduce that amount of water that goes through that pipe today with the whole, building a bigger bathtub and smaller outlet to it, or controlling that outlet flow to it.
I don't think I got that. Is there going to be less water or more water?
There'll be more water going to the detention pond, but the outlet coming out of the pipe, out of the detention pond should be less than what's designed today, or laid in there today. So.
Okay.
So basically it drains itself over time is basically what you're saying.
Yes, there's a design standard drained over a length of time.
And in case there was more water that came in at one time, it's allowing it to slowly go through the storm system instead of overloading it is basically what you're doing, correct?
Right, correct.
Okay. Any other questions?
I guess sort of one clarification that, so right now there's an open 12-inch pipe, I believe there. Now we'll build a concrete structure around there, and there'll be little holes in a plate there to let the water go through to slow it down. And as it also acts as a water quality treatment process as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the reason we cover this is just to help the audience understand this issue. Drainage isn't really a specific thing that we address as we consider zoning, but still very valuable. We really value the input and want to make sure that we're discussing all of these things as much as possible as we consider this change.
Mr. Chair,
yes.
just real quick, it's not considered for zoning. It's very much considered when a building permit is issued and before any structures can be occupied.
Quite right. Okay. Let's see, I think we've had everybody that wanted to speak. We've had a kind of final comment to address some of those issues with the engineering. I think we're ready for consideration by the commission.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item number 12. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I appreciate the neighbors coming out and voicing their opinions, but the Planning Commission, and I think Jeff brought this up, and I had it written down on my piece of paper before that too, is we don't approve the plan. We don't approve, the type of door. We don't approve where the access points are. We don't approve the drainage. All those things are handled by the city ordinance. What we look at is, should institutional S1 be next to RA2, be next to single family? I think you'll find that all over the city of Sioux Falls. The RA2 is a buffer between the institutional and the single family. So in my opinion, this ground, again, we don't approve the plan. What goes above the ground, we approve the ground. And the ground is suitable for RA2. So I'm going to support this one.
Okay. Other discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'm not going to support it. I don't think it has the incompatibility reduced to the extent that it would need to be the kind of project that we would approve in terms of a rezone.
Okay. Other discussion?
Mr. Chair, although I empathize with the neighbors because nobody wants, it sounds like they've had a lot of issues. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. I empathize with the neighbors with the drainage issues, but the aim of the engineering design sounds like that they're not only taking care of the 5 acres that will be rezoned, but the entire, the 13 acres, including the new project and the building. And I agree with Commissioner Sershin regarding the land use decision. So I think that the land use is appropriate, but the drainage will likely be addressed during the engineering design of this new project.
Okay, thank you. Other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I agree with both commissioners as well, and I'm in support of this rezone regarding drainage and traffic. All of that will be reviewed. And in regards to the building height, that does not change with either one of the zoning. And so, again, we are a land use board, and I am in favor of this.
Okay. Other discussion? Seeing none, we'll take the vote for all those in favor of item number 12 as presented. Please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, no.
No.
So we have 7 in favor, 1 opposed. Motion passes. Thank you.
Item 13, 8881, 2018, conditional use permit for on-sale alcoholic beverage establishment located within 500 feet of a sensitive land use located at 5239 West 26th Street.
We received an email from the applicant of this item on Tuesday that he would like to withdraw his application for conditional use permit.
Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve the withdrawal of item number 13.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the withdrawal of item number 13. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Item 14, 8899, 2018, conditional use permit for on-sale alcoholic beverage establishment located within 500 feet of a sensitive land use located at 2209 West 57th Street.
Maggie Squire, representing Planning and Development Services. The applicant is proposing to open a full-service restaurant in the building that was formerly Stars. The site is within 500 feet of Reach Church on Old Yankton Road. The proposed on-sale alcoholic beverage establishment meets the criteria of the comprehensive plan. This is an existing arterial corridor with commercial uses. The site has previously functioned as both a bar and restaurant. Lighting of the structure and soundproofing of the property are items to be considered during the public hearing. The parking is on site. An approved security management plan is required before an alcohol license can be approved. Because the application has provided clarity to indicate the location, nature, and extent of the work proposed, staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit. And I can answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions from the commission?
I have a question. So it was a bar before. What's the reason why it's coming back in front of us? Is it just for that owner only, or?
I believe that, I think Jason will take this one.
I think it's because of the sensitive use next to a.
The previous approval of this Stars restaurant, as you're referring to, was, and then Joey's Seafood was done under the old ordinance. Once Shade Places became effective in 2014, if you're going to transfer or get a new alcohol license, we use that ordinance to look at the separation distance. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the city? Hearing none, is the applicant here? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and let us know if you have any additional comments.
2209, Rudy Navarrete, 2209 West 57th Street. Yeah, I had purchased the building about a month ago or so, probably 6 weeks or so. Anyhow, it's a Tex-Mexican food, and I intend on having it a family restaurant. So I'm just going to have beer and wine. I don't intend on having a happy hour for drinks or anything like that. I just want to offer beer and wine to the customers.
Okay, any other comments?
No, I'm excited to be here.
Okay, any questions from the commission? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address this item? Seeing none, and entertain commission action.
Motion for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item number 14. Any discussion?
I think it makes sense based on it being a previous bar that we honor it. So.
Okay. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Item 15, public input on non-agenda items, and the time is 7:18.
Thank you. The commission now welcomes public input on non-agenda items, as she said. Public input is limited to a single 5-minute period for each person that would like to address the commission, and a total of 20 minutes maximum. We are a land use board, and we ask that comments on related subjects to what our jurisdiction be addressed wherever possible. The commission will listen to the input, but will not respond directly to questions or input during this meeting. We would ask that you come forward and state your name and address for the record. And is there anyone that would like to address the commission on a non-agenda item tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the non-agenda input and move on to the next item.
Item 16, presentation required landscape and buffer yard effectiveness.
Tristan Erickson representing planning.
Step forward, please, Tristan. We can't quite hear you.
Tristan Erickson representing Planning and Development Services. I'm an intern for them. This presentation will discuss commercial property buffer yards that sit adjacent to zone residential and how the conditions of the buffer yards are currently according to the ordinance. I will also talk about the additional buffer yard benefits such as noise pollution reduction and stormwater management. These are the current buffer yard requirements that correspond to my study. To further rate the effectiveness of the buffer yard, a 1 to 4 rating was given to each commercial buffer yard. With this additional rating information, the buffer yards can be evaluated on their conditions and effectiveness. Commercial properties with a variety of plant units received a 1, while properties with one type of plant units that are unhealthy or dead received a 4. Each permit was separated by the level of buffer yard required and received a further rating on a scale of 1 to 4. With this further rating, the breakdown of effectiveness within the buffer yard becomes more prevalent. The breakdown of ratings being as followed: 14 rating 1s, 17 rating 2s, 17 rating 3s, and 3 rating 4s. Implementing berms instead of fences provides a natural soils to form, providing initial stormwater treatment, primarily infiltration, and controls sedimentation. The turf diffuses the water and soils retain contaminants, slowing stormwater velocity. Planting trees within the buffer yard, preferably on the berm, promotes rainwater infiltration to the groundwater table. And as example on the board here, a 5-year hackberry intercepts about 133 gallons of rainfall per year. So plant vegetation is very effective. Using berms to achieve noise reduction involves the arrangement of plants to the berm to entrap or absorb sound vibrations. Sound is absorbed by all parts of the plant, such as leaves, branches, twigs, and wood. Providing more space for vegetation on the berm greatly increases the barrier, further reducing the amount of noise that escapes the site. To further improve the buffer yard ordinance, screening, stormwater management, and noise pollution have to be considered. The current ordinance is correspondingly put to place for screening purposes, which is in the right direction. But one way to improve the buffer yard ordinance would be to change the required plant material by changing the units to require a certain number of variety of units. Not only would it look more appealing, but by increasing crown cover, it would decrease escape noise and allow for better water absorption. Buffer yards are planting areas designed to separate incompatible adjacent uses and provide privacy and protection against potential adverse zoning districts. While screening is what buffer yards are typically used for, they can have a more impactful impression on cities. Buffer yards can be used as stormwater management practices, decreasing the amount of water runoff from the site. By utilizing berms with planting vegetation, buffer yards could decrease noise pollution escaping the site as well. Creating a stricter ordinance on landscape units could achieve these goals, allowing for more purposeful buffer yards. I'm here to answer any questions you guys may have.
Okay, thank you, Tristan. Any questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair. Tristan, on your analysis of the ratings that you gave, were those permit facts based on an RA1 needed a level A or something like that?
Yes, the way I gathered what level of buffer yard, I went through the permits that I was given and I determined, and based off of the plans that the developer gave, I was able to tell what level, if it was a level A through D. And then based off of what level was required, I went and evaluated the site, and depending on how, off my rating, how effective it was. So that's kind of how I got my rating system.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair, so it was encouraging that there were so many, so one was a good rating, right?
Yes.
So it was good that out of the 49 that Tristan rated, 30 of them, either a 1 or a 2. So I guess my question, and maybe Tristan, I don't know if you can answer this, but maybe Jason or Jeff can. Are there any consequences for property owners that have berms? Shauna, maybe you can answer this. Awesome, thank you.
So Shauna Goldammer, Zoning Enforcement Manager. So I have both my interns here tonight, so they presented very well, and I'm super proud of them, so very good. Good job, Tristan, for explaining the buffer yards, because it's not easy to do. So if you could please repeat your question.
Are there consequences for buffer yards that are not following the regulations or the rules.
Right. So landscaping is required to continue to grow, and dead and dying trees need to be replaced. So consequences in a positive way in that they have to replant it. It has to be living and surviving and meet the criteria of the ordinance. So we enforce that to make sure that it is in good condition. There are going to be some people who are going to be hearing from us after Tristan's report and letting us know those places that need our follow-up and enforcement action. So yes, there are consequences, but in the end, it's a positive consequence.
Mr. Chair, one follow-up to that. So do you typically go out and review those, or was this just because we had interns? And then in the future, how would violations be enforced or reported?
Okay, so we do inspections on final inspections. Zoning participates in, just like building, plumbing, mechanical. Zoning also does final inspections on commercial projects. So we don't do follow-up inspections after a certain amount of time unless it's in the front yard setback, because in the front yard they actually have 3 years to meet substantial foliage. So yes and no. We do final inspections. We don't do follow-up inspections to make sure that the ground cover, or excuse me, the buffer yard is in good condition. But this was a good exercise for an intern, and I can see that this type of project would be a good one for interns in the future.
I would agree with that and say that's so an opportunity for neighbors as they're looking at buffer yards. If they see issues or have questions, they can call you guys, right?
And I'm going to interject because that's a good transition. Tristan, what's your background and why from intern?
Yeah, introduce yourself a little bit more.
I attended South Dakota State University for landscape architecture. I'm currently in my final process of graduating through this internship. So,
thanks.
So he was a lot of the artwork in this presentation is his own hand. So that was very good for us, because it was hard for us to explain. With buffer yards are a function of shaped places. And so being able to have these kind of depictions of what those would look like with the different planting units and the depth of those is very well portrayed in these in this report. So, anything else for me?
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, just on behalf of the Planning Commission, thank you, Tristan and Maggie, and good luck in school next year. And Mr. Chair, I do have one other question, primarily for the realtors and for the fellow commissioners. Do you receive, what type of feedback do you receive on the buffers and the property, next to properties or adjacent to properties that you sell? Is it positive, negative, no feedback?
No feedback, no.
Okay.
I would have to agree. It's fairly minimal that we hear personally on it.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or commentary? Okay, hearing none. Thank you again, Tristan.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. We're adjourned.